Great. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us for this evening's lecture. I didn't do a great job of putting my slides together, I'll be honest. There was so much information. There's way too many slides. So I will go through it and we'll see how we go and how fast I can talk. And for those of you who weren't in my last lecture, I'm Louise Shaper. I'm obviously your lecturer this evening talking about biomedical informatics and patient safety. But I did say in the previous lecture I did a couple of weeks ago, and for those of you who haven't met me before, that I really love digital health. I'm sort of obsessed. So I can talk about this stuff forever. It's literally my job, my full-time job and my part-time job and my hobby. So if you wait for me to take a breath, if you've got a question or a comment, you might want to disagree with something I've said, then please just don't wait for me to take a breath. Just to unmute yourself and say, hey, I've got a question or whatever. So if we were in person, you would see me wandering around throughout the crowd and getting your input as much as we can. But as I said, I didn't do a great job of these lecture slides because there's a lot of them, but I hope it's really interesting to you guys. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you think, and the feedback, any feedback you've got would be good. But I will I'll endeavour to get through as much as we can. And if the timing is going on and I'm not close to being finished, then it doesn't matter. You'll get a copy of the slides anyway. Because don't worry, I don't want you sitting here listening to me talk for 2 hours. Okay, so we're going to get started on informatics and patient safety. So first, I thought I should start today's lecture with a bit of a warning, to be honest. And this is going to be a little overwhelming. If this is new to you, if you don't work in the healthcare sector, for those of you who do work in the healthcare sector, you'll know some of this stuff because you'll live it. But for those of you who are relatively new, I'm going to be bombarding you with a bunch of stories which are not good news. And I wish it was fake news. There's a lot of bad news here regarding safety. It's the very nature of the topic, of course, when we're talking about how safe is healthcare and what can we do to improve safety. So I just thought I would start with a little bit of a warning. I don't have too many light stories to share with you today, but a lot of important information to impart. So we will see how we'll go. Oh, hi, Brian. I see you're on video now. Hello. Did you want to say anything as we get started, Brian?
Well, I apologize that I forgot to publish the module, so I hope people get a chance to get through that stuff, even if you didn't get to it before the class. But nope, go ahead, Louise. Looking forward to it.
Yes, so as I said, I was just giving a warning. This is going to come with a lot of bad news. So we'll start with some pretty depressing statistics, actually. So there is a problem with safety in the healthcare sector. I used to work, my very first job when I left high school was actually working in the mining sector. And if you work in the mining sector where there's heavy machinery, dangerous chemicals, all this sort of stuff, they have a really strong culture around safety. So when I used to drive onto the mine site every day, there'd be a great big electronic billboard that you couldn't not see. And it would be claiming how many days they'd had since they have not had an accident on site, and how many days since they've had a death. And you wanted to see hundreds and hundreds of days obviously in that, and it struck me as really strange when I started working in healthcare and realized that there is a completely different culture around safety, and hence that's what we're here to talk to you about today. So this picture is obviously, don't worry about it. This isn't something I just grabbed from the news today. I've been using, I think this crash is an amazing picture. So I'm just using it to illustrate a point. But if I did tell you that, obviously this doesn't work when we're all in lockdown and we can't travel. But if we weren't in lockdown and I said to you, oh my God, this is a picture from the Melbourne airport today, like these 2 planes crashed, you'd be, what would you do? Like, how would you feel? How would it change your plans to travel? You might be planning on going away on the weekend and flying to Sydney or somewhere warmer. And how would that impact? Would you be able to travel? Like, how do you think the airline industry would react to something like this crash happening? And when you look at how many people, these are 747 planes, and when you look at how many people fit on, how many passengers fit on these planes, we're talking about 416 seats in a 747. So the annual death rates in hospitals are devastatingly high. And this is relatively old data, by the way, but it's still incredibly relevant. And we'll learn through the course of tonight's lecture why it's difficult to get up-to-date statistics on this stuff. But in Australia, we're talking about 14,000 people a year die every year in the healthcare system, not because they're sick, and their disease kills them and we couldn't help them, but because they're in the healthcare system. So by its very nature of being in a healthcare system, a lot of people die. In the UK, where there's more people and bigger systems to deal with, we're talking about 44,000 people. And in the United States, the data shows over 98,000 die every year. When we think about how many plane crashes those statistics relate to, we're talking about in Australia, that would be equating to 2 747 crashes every single month. In the UK, 2 crashes every week. And in the United States, 235 crashes, or 2 crashes every 3 days. Like, we're talking about these massive numbers. And if you think about, as I said, what would happen if this was an actual plane crash with those types of numbers, how we would react, or even how we're reacting to COVID-19 and the extreme measures have been put in place to make sure that the death rates stay low and we flatten the curve. But in healthcare, the very nature of healthcare is very unsafe, and yet you don't see these things reported in the front page of your newspapers or on Twitter. It comes out in a brief. These statistics get gathered and they come out and they get buried. And what I wanted to emphasize, which we'll hear more about tonight as well, is that these errors aren't the fault of individual clinicians. It's not because a clinician doesn't care about their patients and they're like, oh, whatever, and they're not providing high quality care. However, there is this safety issue, and we will go through some of the reasons those issues exist tonight.